All right, welcome everyone. Thanks for coming by. This is Chris Petri, and we're actually going to have a great time. We're going to transport ourselves over to Australia. As you know, recently, you've probably seen some of my videos. We went to different locations, and we painted different cities, and so I'm just going to continue on a little bit here and there once in a while, and just add a few more cities to my places that I love to paint. It's really exciting to do that. You know, when I'm in the studio and I'm looking on my laptop and I'm looking through photographs and pictures online, or even in books, sometimes I'll see gorgeous pictures of cities all around the world. It's just exciting to paint those and draw and paint those cities. So here I'm excited. I found this photograph. This is actually in Brisbane, Australia. So we're going to take ourselves, we're going to get our mind focused into that beautiful area of the world, Australia. All my friends out there in Australia, I know you're constantly coming to my YouTube channel and checking out my videos, and I appreciate that very much. So I wanted to paint this picture. I saw this online. It looked beautiful. It looks like an outdoor mall with a beautiful cafe, restaurant, Jimmy's. I looked online. I noticed that they said that they were very famous in that area. Jimmy's restaurant was actually one of the top-rated restaurants in Brisbane. And it's open 24/7, so can you go wrong with that? Great food. Lots of people go there all the time. It's always an exciting place. And open 7 days a week. You know, wow, that's great too. So let's draw and paint this. We're going to do the alla prima method. This is my photograph. If you go online, you can find this very simple. If you just type in Jimmy's Brisbane, you'll find this photograph. And we're going to use this. So I'm going to draw this first, contour draw this scene, and then we're going to paint. We'll do alla prima style. That's the style I'm most comfortable with. And sometimes even within alla prima, we do mix in wet and wet methods and things like that. So I kind of use a mixture of all different kinds of techniques when I paint. So here we're just... I'm looking at the scene, and I'm noticing it's just got some beautiful parallel lines. That always looks beautiful in a picture. Lots of parallel lines. That's the sort of the dominant line is like the parallel lines in the picture this way. Tons of figures. This is great too. This will make an exciting painting. Lots of figures, darks and lights were really nice. Some really darks and a mixture of darks and lights looks really nice. And interesting things going on, interesting colors, beautiful greens and golds with the trees and the area here along the cafe, and there's the cafe here. So we're going to, some distant buildings here, so we'll put a little bit of those distant buildings here just to capture that feel of the high-rise buildings in the back here. And this is a real fun painting. We're going to simplify a lot of things, as you'll see. And I'll kind of just take you through my thought process as we create this painting. We're going to take our time doing this. I'm going to probably make this an hour and a half video. I would say it's going to take us about an hour and a half to draw and paint this and kind of get everything all in really good shape and, you know, to a finished painting. All right, so what I'll do is I'll take this. I'm going to actually take this same picture and put it on my laptop across from me in my studio here. I'm working on a table with a little bit of an angle. Just a slight angle on my art table. And I just have some beautiful Arches satin paper, smooth, super smooth paper, some artist tape around it. We're going to tape our border. And we're going to get started doing our drawing. And we're going to have a lot of fun here. This is going to be exciting. So we have our overall layout of landscape layout for our paper. So Our paper is long ways this way. I have to actually zoom back out here. Good thing I remember to do that. Let's zoom out here. So, as I was saying here, we have a landscape painting this way. So our painting is horizontally set up. And we have our tape around there, and we have a couple smudges already on the paper. That's fine. I like that. That works for me. And all right, I'm going to kind of do what I always do. You'll notice we always do this before we start. We kind of get some points on our tape around the outer borders of our painting just so we have a place where we can start the drawing process, where we kind of have some areas figured out so that we just don't go in willy-nilly. All right, so Jimmy's Cafe here. I notice in the photograph it looks just a touch above halfway on the height of the cafe roof. So let's do that. A little bit, here's about halfway, a little bit above halfway. So we'll put our mark there. Cafe. Zoom out a little bit here. Okay. And it's about halfway across the cafe roof. Jimmy's Cafe's about halfway across, not quite, is the cafe roof. So we'll put it about here. Cafe. So I'm kind of getting where my cafe is located, and there's the cafe is about, the base of the cafe is about here, where there's some flower beds and some seating, some benches and things along here at this height. So I'll put seating. I'm just making notes for myself. You can do abbreviations if you want, or you might even just not even have to put any kind of words here. You can just put hash marks. But sometimes it is good to put maybe some sort of initials, or in this way it's a little bit easier. When you're starting to draw, you're already not having to go back again and kind of look at everything. So seating, top of the cafe roof, roof over here, the end of the building is about here, about halfway across the picture or so. And we can pretty much we can come over here and we'll say that there's a roof over here about halfway. So I'm just going to put an R for a roof. There's a metal roof. It looks like it's a canopy over another area. That might be another cafe or a coffee shop or something over here, or a store, some sort of shopping store. And there's more roof up here. That starts about here, so I can put an angle, that line up here, I can put an angle, just so I know that this roof that's above here in the picture is going to start about there and then extend into the picture. So that'll give me a good point to make sure that I have a good starting point here for this angle in this upper roof over here. But this is sort of diminished. We're not going to, the focal point is definitely going to be the cafe over here. And also the figures. That'll be important for us. We're going to put in a lot of figures here. And then just below the roof is the, I'm going to put canopies. So I'm putting canopies over here because it's a little bit lower than that main large roof line. So now, for this to make sense, obviously you have to have a picture, or you have to have this pulled up on your phone or your laptop, or you may not need to. You might just want to, you just might wait for me to start drawing everything, and then you can take a picture or a screen capture of my drawing, my pencil drawing, however you want to do it. I know everyone out there is creative. I don't have to really go into too much detail. I get very few comments about people not being able to figure out how to get the drawings and the pictures and so forth. But it's I leave it up to your creativity to handle that. And since we have our waypoints in, we're going to let's take a break. We've been here about 15 minutes already. Good time to take a break after we get our waypoints around our tape, our drawing. So we have our points that we need, our critical hash marks around our. We could also, I'm just noticing one more here, like there's a couple figures here. Figures there. Then there's a figure here. That's about here. So I'll put a figure here. And that should be good. And the rest we can handle when we're doing our drawing. All right, we've done it. We've gotten to the point where we've got our points around our tape on our watercolor paper that we derived from looking at our picture that we're using a photograph today. So we got our points from our photograph all set up around this. So now when we start going in and doing our drawing, we're not constantly scratching our head and looking at our photograph and thinking, where is everything? Now we can go in and do our drawing, having all the key points that we need, which makes the drawing go way better. So you'll see if you do these points when you're doing your drawings, even if you're out in the field and doing, live studies or working from, even a still life, you'll find that kind of laying out a few points around your painting is going to really help you to get a much better effect when you're doing your drawing, because you're not distracted when you're drawing by trying to figure everything out. Does that make sense? All right, let's come back in like 5-10 minutes. I'm taking a break. I'll be right back. All right, so now we just took a quick break and we're back and we're doing this beautiful drawing of Brisbane, Australia, Jimmy's Cafe. That's going to be over here in the right-hand side of this picture. This is a beautiful courtyard area, some figures. Let's get right into it. So here I notice I made my notes already, so I'm fine. I have the cafe roof here. So I'm going to go across, and I notice I have my cafe here, so I know I have to end my roof about there. And I'm contour drawing, so I'm careful to there's some trees and foliage over here. So I'm just taking my time, and I think what I'll do is I am going to start to work in these tree shapes over here. Now, I'm going to continue to work with contour drawing. The great thing about contour drawing is we just keep our eyesight focused on the picture or the subject matter we're looking at. And if we do that, we have an easier time. We just kind of keep using everything we're seeing in front of us as scale as to how large and how far we have to draw things in. And there's another lower roof here that extends out a little more, so I see that. I'm going to go there like that, and that goes all the way across. And then we see some trees over here, so I'm going to do, these are some larger trees here that are in this I'm doing some tree shapes. I'm trying to keep a look on everything as I draw. So I notice that there's many tree trunks, and they go all the way up to the top of the picture. So you can see I just take those tree trunks and I go up, and I notice there's some figures. So I will put some figures in over here where the base of the trees are. I said that this was the seating, where there was some seating and things on the picture, like that. And okay, and then there's some figures here, so I'm going to just do some very loose and free looking figures. Legs, I almost don't worry about the legs whatsoever. I just try to get the head and the shoulders for the figures. And it's good to make the figures, like, it's good to have the figures, when we paint our figures, we can add motion to them. We could tip the shoulders and things. Right now we're just getting the idea of like some figures standing here, and they're, chatting and having a good time here at the Jimmy's Cafe. They may be waiting for some seating to get in. So we'll put these like 3 or 4 figures here. And I always notice that when you do pencil drawings, they always look much better once you start going in and adding color and paint to them and everything. Like, so whenever you're looking at your drawings of your figures and things, don't ever get worried about them. Just get your basic shape of what you're going to do, and don't try to draw every detail. Try to do very little detail whatsoever. Maybe a head and some shoulders, and then just, an approximate of the legs tapering down, almost like a carrot. So, the top of the carrot is up here, and then it comes to the point like that. And then when we draw later, we can add some shadows to the ground and figure the idea out a little more. But there's no need to really get too involved with tons of details. And this is also a smaller drawing, obviously. This is not a large sheet of paper. This is like an 8 by 10 or 8 by 12. So, if that makes sense. And there's more. There's lots of trees over here and trunks and things. So I'm just gonna, and I'm trying to look at the drawing. Definitely use that as a guide. And then there's a light post here, so I'm going to go up here, and the light post goes up about here. All right, so we have our light post and our trees and tree trunks and interesting shapes. And we have our roof over here. There's some foliage across this roof section here. And I'm just going to go straight across. The edges of the paper, like over here, the edges of this composition here, not so critical as to be worrying about a lot of details over here. The main main details are really, in the central location of the page. Once you start working out into these the edges of these areas, you're going to kind of want to just downplay those areas. So no need to start fussing around with how far does the roof go over here? Is there a figure over here on this top? All that kind of stuff over here. We let that go. This here is a good area for some figures. This is all downplayed along here, and we'll just keep keep moving along in our drawing. And there's a kiosk of some sort here. And some walls, and I'm not going to get too worried about that. Then there's this looks like a portion of of a wall and a planter where the tree is. So we have some more shrubs and plants over here. And I won't put in every figure I see in the painting. And there's a figure here. And I think as we go, we're going to find that there's some more trees over here. So this area that's part of the building. So I'm kind of finding things I need to keep going with my drawing. And there's a column. There's a column or a post here for this roof. There's some trees over here. In the distance, there's a few more figures. And I'm going to try to, if you can imagine, what really makes this a little more simple is to just kind of remember that we want to kind of keep the heads of the figures around the same height. So what I'll do is I'll just sort of remember, I'll put a couple dash lines so that when I'm doing my figures, I keep the heads at the same height. And that helps with perspective. So there's a number of figures here, and I can just do these are distant figures. Again, I'm trying to keep all the heads and the figures around the same height from here to here all the way across the picture. And obviously there'll be some larger figures in the foreground here, which we'll draw those in. Okay, so we're working this over here. Let's keep working on this section. There's a tree here and some more trees over here. Then there's a building here. Let's get that building in. And that building, I'm just going to put some vertical lines. And I'm not too worried about this building. This is going to be very, very light, very down, downplaying this. Just it's going to be in the background. And then there's some buildings over here. And again, these two, I'm just drawing the angles of the building going up like that. And that should be enough. And then I'll put some lines for the cornice of the building up top. Just some shadow lines. We're just going to really loosely put those in, just little indications, and some vertical lines for the windows. These over here, I'll do just some hash marks to help when we go back in and paint this area here. We'll have those hash marks in. Okay, so we have our building back here. Our building's our high-rise building. We have that other building here that's on an angle. And we have our tree shapes here. That's going to be somewhat large. This tree leaves are pretty predominant there. And then we're going to go with then we'll go across here. This is maybe I'll use a ruler. I'll go across here. Once in a while I use a ruler. It starts about there, like that. And that's that canopies that are over here, and there's some so I'm just kind of looking at the picture and seeing how that just trails off there into the distance. And there's some columns here. There's a right about here. There's a light up above. This goes up here. And then we have a few more verticals. And again, you can really simplify things. I wouldn't get too bogged down with these areas here. If you just put a couple column-like structures along this section here, I think you'll be okay. And then we have this coming down here. This is that roof that comes down like so. And it goes like this. And there's a couple. So that's like that. And this is another canopy over here that goes across quite a bit, about a third, almost about a third of the way across the page. And again, no need to really get to, this like 1 inch, this 1 inch area here, this vertical area here along the edge. Again, it's like this area over here along this side, about an inch, or right along this side here. Not too important to really have to get any detail really there. You kind of just, more of the detail is going to be right in here. And this kind of just softens out a little bit over on the edge here. So we're not going to get too worried about what's there. It's just, I'll just put some more tree shapes over there to blend that off into the side of the painting. And then this here is so there's some interesting interesting trees and plants over here. And there's a little sign over here. We'll make sure we get that. That's over here, the sign. Okay, so we did a lot of drawing here. I'm getting a little bit fatigued and tired, so it's, 10, 15 minutes. That's about my limit. I'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll get some more of our paint drawing completed. Actually, we'll finish our drawing. When we come back, we'll do some large figures here, and I think we should be fine. Okay, so we will be right back. Okay, so I just took a quick break. I got more than halfway through my drawing, and then I decided to take a break. Again, if you feel like you need more breaks when you're doing your drawings, that's fine. Drawings seem to be the more difficult part of the combination of drawing and painting. Drawing seems to be a little more intensive. When we get into the paints, it's a little more fun. Some of us like to paint. Some of us like to draw more. We prefer maybe some more than the other. Like some people just really incredibly, enjoy incredibly drawing, sketching, all that kind of thing. And when it comes to painting, it's a little more challenging. Others of you, I realize you probably really enjoy painting and you're maybe not so much keen on drawing a whole lot. So that's fine too. If you have a painting like this that you're working on and you're not really a huge fan of drawing, the thing is, if you can just get these points on and around your border, if you get those and then you just do some really light sketching of a few lines here and there, you can really work your way through the rest of the details of a painting. You really don't need to do all of the details, but since I incredibly enjoy drawing, so that's why I really kind of do a lot of contour drawing like this on this type of a painting. But again, if you're not really so keen on drawing as much, no big deal. You can really get 90% of this done with just the brush and colors and sort of working with the knowledge you already have. But it's up to you. But I figured I would just mention that. And so let's continue on here. I think we can finish this up. And I just wanted to mention quick, if you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing here. We make these videos every week. Once a week, we'll get into all kinds of different paintings of landscapes, cityscapes like this, seascapes. We do flower paintings, we do sometimes still life, just, like wine bottles and fruit and baskets and you name it. We do everything here at this channel. So this is just a great resource for you as an artist. Maybe some weeks you might not be so happy about some of the stuff we're painting or drawing, but next week you might like it or the week after. So that's why I try to change up my my repertoire here that I do, and hope everybody enjoys it. And again, if you click the notification button as well next to the subscribe button, then at least you'll always know, you'll be alerted when our video comes out, and then you can check on it and see if you like it. And if it's something you want to tackle, one of the projects we're doing, you can join in and join with us and participate. All right, so let's get right back into it here. We have a lot of the drawing done. Maybe just some more figures, I think, and we'll be all set. And I see that there's like a couple here. So I'm going to do the couple. And they're sort of walking here along this beautiful plaza, and it's gorgeous with all the landscape and trees and bushes and plants and all the people. It's a really exciting place. And we have Jimmy's restaurant over here, which is exciting. Everybody loves to go there. That's the main focal point of our painting. Jimmy's restaurant over here. And we're going to, this is gorgeous Brisbane, Australia. And Okay, so you can see I just did a quick a couple here, a couple walking, and then this is sort of perspective-wise, we're looking down on the scene. So it might be that in this photograph, the person took the picture from above, maybe from like a second floor area, maybe another restaurant or cafe. So I think I might have to go off of that plan with all the figures being at the same height, because these are... So we'll make our figures over here. There's over here, you can see they're lower in the picture, and then they start to get larger here. And let's take a look here. This is a shadow area underneath these storefronts here. So that's sort of a shadow area. And then over here there's bushes, so I just put in those. And again, we'll just soften this up over here. We're not going to get too worried about that. And these are more figures here. And there's some more figures here. So I'm making a lot of figures here that are walking, a lot of people having a fun time. They're shopping and walking along through here. So I think this will be good. It will be good. And then there's some larger figures here. And that figure, he's holding a bag, a shopping bag here, and I just erase a little bit just to get in. And there's a gentleman here, or a woman here. Let's see if that's a woman, I think. Or it might be a guy. That's a guy maybe with a back. We can make it, you can change around your figures. You don't have to stick to what's there. You can make a woman figure, a man figure, a woman figure. It's all how you want to just, design your painting. And so maybe I'll do this here. Maybe we'll make a woman walking here. I think it is a guy, and she maybe has some shopping bag here as well. And again, this is more just once we start painting, it looks a lot more interesting. I'm just kind of jotting down the ideas of the figures just quickly. All right, so that looks pretty good. So we're going to take another break. We did a lot of drawing here, and again, we're having fun. Maybe we'll just do the quick. We'll do the sign over here, Jimmy's Cafe. And we can doesn't have to be perfect, the lettering. And then there's a little white sign underneath that, just so we kind of catch the abstract of that lettering. We'll be fine. We want it to see, we want to see Jimmy's here a little bit, but we don't want to make it like spend a lot of time on the details of this. We just want to write, jimmies, try to capture the same lettering that you see if you can, like the style of the lettering if possible. But it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. You can paint this and then just do a real quick jimmies in whatever handwriting you have. So whatever type of handwriting you might like, you can just do that. And that's really all that it is. Just really it identifies the restaurant here. And okay, we're excellent. We're really this section over here is pretty challenging, but we're going to make it less challenging by we're going to fill this in very abstractly. The key with complex pictures like this, I learned this a long time ago and it really helps tremendously. If you have a real complex picture or a scene that you're working on, it really helps just to sort of pick a few sections that are going to have some details and then try to abstract the rest with just blocks of color, blotches of color, beautiful colors, mixing colors, darks, lights, whatever. We'll basically go with the essence of what we're seeing. So in our picture, and we'll check on our picture before we start painting. One more time, we'll look at the picture, and then I'll describe what I'm kind of getting at here. But, there's some same thing with over here. There's all kinds of bushes over here. So we can you can create, and I encourage everybody, create your own subject matter when you have to make it easier to paint. And again, we'll discuss that in just a few minutes. So let's take a break. We'll come right back and we'll look at our picture one more time, our photograph, reference photo, and we'll, kind of discuss how we're going to paint it, and then we'll go in and we'll do it. Okay, we'll be right back. All right, back from a break. We're back from a break. I had some lunch, and let's get back to work. And we're going to look at the picture one more time before we go in and paint. Again, I have this same picture. Let me zoom in here. Okay, I have this picture on my laptop. Let me see if I can move this a little bit. Okay, better. All right, so I have this on my laptop across from me to my right. And what we can see is definitely there's some really good darks here, right? There's all this dark up here. There's all these darks here all the way back there. There's more darks under here. Let's start with the darks. That'll definitely, and there's some darks under these trees here. So if we start with these darks, I think we're really going to be at a benefit, because they're easy to identify here in this painting or in this picture, the darks. They're easy to identify. We can really see them. And if we do that, that'll be a real powerful part of the painting is the darks. And then once we get those in, then we can start working in our figures and some of our other middle tones, which would be like the reds up here and the whites and the grays and the grays back here and the tans and golds. So there's all little subtle colors throughout the picture. There's more pops of color here in the front where the figures are, so we'll get those, of course. But let's start off with the darks. I think that'll really help us. It'll feel like we have a really large amount of painting done once we get those darks in. And let's start the painting. All right, we'll zoom back out. And again, I have my palette set up here. Soft, moist paint, that's the main thing. Doesn't matter what palette you have. As long as you have nice, soft, moist, goopy paint in there, you're going to have a much better look to your painting. Okay, now this is like an 8x10 or an 8x12 painting, so we're not going to use really large brushes. We're going to kind of use, you know, small to middle-sized brushes. I'm going to do a 6 Raphael to start with, and fresh, clean water, and we're going to go right in and okay, the choice for darks, obviously the darks, a lot are the greens. So we could lighten this up a little bit, not make it as dark as it looks in the picture, but we'll start out and see how it goes. We're going to have some burnt umber here, and cerulean blue. I'll start off over here with some cerulean blue, and then we'll have some sap green. And some yellow ochre. And we can always remember that with greens we can always go a little lighter and then darken things up. So let's start over here. And as you can see, you can do a little finger dabbing to have an interesting look to that. And then we can do some French ultramarine blue, some purple. So we're going to use some cooler colors now. Purple, French ultramarine blue, just to get some darker darks here. I'm going to try to leave some of those, there's some structural, you know, there's some like cables that look like they're cables hanging from the ceiling, maybe holding up some of the other structures over here where the canopies are. So I try to keep those, maybe a few of those in. So I'll paint around that, leave a little area of, here again, I'm not going to make a big deal of the side of the picture. So I'm kind of just trying to make it really look interesting. These greens and things over here. Some golds and greens and keeping them a little bit dark. And I'm going to do some of these. These are like bushes and plants here. And we'll go with some of that darker dark here underneath this. This is almost, if you can imagine, when we're painting these, I mean, we know these are, you know, these are like trees and branches and things, but you can almost just paint them very, very carefree. You know, really the color of them actually, and just a few shapes of the shapes of things really just kind of, it gives you the freedom to just kind of, you know, fire it in, to go for it, splashes, a little bit of finger painting. No one's really going to be looking at that so much. I think the real focal point is going to be like the cafe, Jimmy's Cafe, and the figures, and the close-up figures especially. So those are going to be like the main stars of the picture. all these other things like these bushes and trees, we're kind of just getting them in there to start with, which is no pressure. So if you can imagine the first part of this painting, we're just trying to make things no pressure. We're just getting in some greens, some trees, you know, as long as we're sort of capturing the feel of the trees and things, we're going to be fine. Some splashing, you know, some lighter, maybe some cadmium lemon yellow for that real nice bright color. And I finger paint a little bit there, I dab a little bit. And we have, again, sap green, cadmium lemon, sap green. Those are two great combinations for the lightness of the trees up here. Then as it gets a little darker, we can mix in with a little bit of the French ultramarine blue and purple under there like that. A little bit of the burnt umber. Kind of a warm and cool feel. If we were just to go with nothing but green, it would look kind of boring. So we're trying to keep from looking boring on our paintings. We want to get things looking interesting and again, you can even start to think about I'm thinking about just as I go here in my painting, I'm even thinking about not worrying about some of the details as much. So we drew in these ceilings over here, part of these structures, but we might add something over there, but we might be able to leave that go. So as we paint here, as we paint, we can kind of okay, I'm adding a lot of that interesting the lighter cadmium lemon yellow and sap green for on the tops of the trees here. And I'm trying to be mindful. I keep looking back at the drawing, and I try to get those warmer some of those warmer tones in there, tonal values. And I would even say, if you want, you know, you can add in some things to your painting. Like here, I'm adding in these extra tree leaves and branches. And I'll put a couple of the trunks of the trees down into the painting. Maybe that's not exactly what's there, but if it helps the painting look better and it makes it easier to paint, let's not be so worried about it. And I wouldn't worry about some of the splashing, since we're doing a decent amount of splashing here. If some of the splashing goes down into to the bottom of the painting, that's going to be fine. It's going to kind of all tie together and look good when we're done. So we're going to get back and keep going with our golds and greens and bit of French ultramarine blue and purple for the darker darks. Go. Okay. And yellow ochre, sap green, a little bit of cerulean blue. And in here I'm going to try to go around some of the shapes over here. And I just put in a little bit of darker. I just charge in some color along the bottom for the shadow areas. Then we have some gold and brown colors with a little bit of purple for under here, under the cafe area. And what I'll do is I'll just make some darks. I'm going to fill in some darks over here. And then purple and French ultramarine blue just for the and then some of the gold and brown color to mix in. And then some greens also to blend in there. And that's sort of the good feel for the underside of that Jimmy's Cafe on that first floor area. And there's some greens. It looks like there's a outer roof area. So if you can imagine, there's some trees and things on the interior of the cafe area on that first floor area. So we're going to capture that. Then there's some interesting burnt sienna, burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, some darks for the wood. It looks like there's some wood on this cafe here for the facade of the cafe. So let's get that in, and we're going to and I try to leave some spaces where the branches are for the trees and the trunks and things. That's always important to try to keep those good. And we'll go around the lettering here. And I'm going around the lettering. This takes a little bit of patience here just to go slow. And that's all. That's really, I wasn't looking to get it exactly perfect. Enough that we know what that is. That's the cafe. Jimmy's Cafe. In beautiful Brisbane, Australia. If someone that lives in this area, they'll immediately recognize that that's what this is, because they'll see Jimmy's there, the name, and that's a famous place, and then they know. And then they'll see the rest of the scene, and it'll just all, if we're not familiar with the area and we don't live here in Australia, then it's a little different. Then we might question the color of the, or question the lettering. But since we, and that's pretty good. I think that's pretty clear. It looks like, okay, that looks pretty good. Keep going here. That's the underside of the roof. And then we'll negative shape paint. There's some branches and leaves over here and some foliage. So let's do that. All right, let's take a break. We did a lot already. We actually did a lot of foliage here, trees and bushes and plants and things. So we're really, we have a good feel now. We're sort of really have a lot accomplished with our painting. And we can just slowly work on this as we go. Keep stepping back, take breaks. We're taking breaks. We've spent maybe 20 minutes now painting this much. Let's stop. Let's take a break, 10, 15 minutes, let things dry a little bit. Come back. We'll assess it as we look at it when we come back from our break. And then we can kind of start developing like a plan of action going forward. So we said we wanted to get those darks in, and we did. We got all our real darks in here, all through this section here. And then we're pretty much, we do have some more darks in here in these storefronts along here. But other than that, and we can even lighten that area up if we want to. So again, once you start your painting and you're feeling confident and good about it, you can start making more decisions on how you want to paint the rest of it. You can change things a little bit. So we're going to do that. We're going to change maybe these storefronts. We're not going to maybe make as dark, or maybe we will. We'll see as we go. But we definitely want to take a break now since we did quite a bit, and then we'll come back. All right, we're back from a break, everyone. And it's great to just take breaks. I always say that. Please take breaks. You can take short breaks, long breaks. You can start a painting like this and then leave it overnight and come back the next day or in a couple days. That really doesn't matter because, if you wait an hour, it's going to be the same as waiting a day or two, essentially, because it's going to dry pretty much, if you're going to come back in an hour or two to start again, you can wait a couple of days or so, even, or a week, and still come back if you had to, if you were extremely busy or something, or you just didn't feel like painting. So no big deal as far as when you start and stop your paintings. But I always say if you're going to keep working, like if you want to do this all in one day, you would just definitely want to take those breaks, every, 15 minutes or so or 20 minutes, stretch, take a break, and then you come back and you change out your water. Like right now, there's a lot of that green water you've seen here from all the greens we did. So I'm going to change out my water and get fresh, clean water. And, so we'll have some fresh, clean water as we're working now. And most of our greens are completed, the trees and a lot of the branches. We'll do a little more. Also, too, a good thing is to just do some quick cleaning up of our palette, do some tidying up of the surface of our palette. So sometimes when we mix, over and over again as we're working, the colors will get a little muddy looking, and it is good to just sort of kind of clean up the palette every half an hour or so if you're working. So we decided to strategize just a little bit here. So we had our painting and our picture, I should say. And I have it set up across from me on my art table. So I do have a laptop set up with the picture across. And I added some things that weren't in the picture. I added this long stretch of tree tops here. Those weren't in the original. And again, I don't mind that. I think it's good to add some things if you think it's going to look good or help you to make a look, have the painting look better in the overall end result. So we'll see how it turns out, but I think this is a good thing. Kind of gives us that feel of like, kind of like an arrowing effect, like sort of like things are pointing into the picture, which looks good too. So that kind of gives us that look. And let's see, we have quite a bit done here. I think we're going to go in and do these storefronts. And they don't need to be really fancy. They're dark, so they're going to have so we'll mix those same colors we were mixing before. They're just fresh now. We're using fresh colors. Purple, blue, French ultramarine blue, purple, and maybe some gold over here too, some yellow ochre. And then let's start to and again, this is pretty pleasing in this painting. If you see some shapes as you're going across here, it's good to put those in. If you see some lines. So I see some lines, I see some rectangles here. But again, this is not like the real, focal point of the painting or an important part of the painting. This is, we're just kind of blocking in some color and some tonal value. And we're using the white paper too as like a and we can make some darker burnt umber and French ultramarine blue. And I'm going to add in some purple and blue for some shadowing. And we're going to paint over those, we're going to paint those figures that we have here. So what I'm trying to do is just get a little bit of tiny bit of wash on the paper and also use the lines of the shadow. I kind of feel like this is some really interesting light coming into this scene along this area on the walkway here, on these sidewalks of this area, of this restaurant area in Brisbane at Jimmy's here. We have this beautiful walkway all the way through here. It's like a plaza. In this area, there's all people, exciting things going on. So I want to make that light kind of interesting. So I just put some light blue and purple and just, made the markings on the paper. Just a super light wash of that feel of light. And also, too, the feeling of the arrowing, the arrowing effect of things coming out. So the lines going this way and this way. So everything's kind of funneling into the picture, like in an arrowing effect, or a star effect, a sunburst effect, sort of. So this is kind of the focal point, and you have the sunbursting effect of the lines, the parallel lines, and then now the shadowing. I'm trying to get that pattern going like that. So if we can get those kind of patterns going in here subtly, it'll help things to look exciting. So let's keep going here, and we have, let's do some shadowing. And I think I'm going to leave some, I'm definitely going to leave some decent amount of white paper here. I don't want to go too I don't really cerulean blue. That'll give us the feel of the sky over here. And then more over here. And I think that little bit of cerulean blue in this area up here above that building and over here definitely gives us that feeling like there's some sky back here in the distance. And that's good. That makes it feel like if we feel like the painting is not blocking us off too much, where it's like a wall in front of us. So if you have that little bit of cerulean blue up here, you're going to feel like you're kind of seeing through the picture, and you're seeing beyond the picture into that blue sky beyond that building there. Even though this building might not be here, we're going to try to create maybe a little feel of more blue sky back here, which I think will help a little bit to make the picture look a little better. And so we have some more, a little bit of blue wash there as well. And I'll use just a little bit of and I'll just use some grayish mix there, just a little bit of that purple and blue, French ultramarine blue and purple, like that. And and again, no one's going to really be too concerned with this over here. This is the main focal point here. And I see that So there's a little bit of a greenish blue, cerulean blue, burnt umber, yellow ochre. So I'm going to put some of that in here. And that's looking good. And we'll do some more shadowing, burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, purple, French ultramarine blue, a little bit of brown, maybe a little bit of green. And I'll just put a shadow under here. And there's a kiosk stand here, it looks like. And there's some more foliage. So this is some plants and things over here. Little interesting color of some cadmium lemon yellow. A little bit of green, sap green there. A little bit of burnt sienna. And then we'll gray down some of that purple color here. So we're just mixing colors, a little bit of shadowing colors, purple and blues, and a little bit of burnt umber in there too for shadowing colors, just to gray things down a little bit. I think we're really in good shape here. I think we're going to do a little more sap green, burnt sienna. Here's another. I don't necessarily see this in the picture. But I put that in. This is a sign, so we'll put in the sign here, burnt sienna, burnt umber, cerulean blue. And then just some mixture here, a little bit of grayish color. That. Okay, we're looking pretty good here. Let's get some burnt umber, French ultramarine blue. And let's just do some of these buildings, the building windows up here. Just quick. My hand is resting on the paper. The paint is dry below my hand. I'm just resting my hand on the paper. And we're just... I'm just trying to... get the feel for the buildings. So the building's back there. Okay, I think that's looking really good. Let's do our figures, and we should be good. And we've been doing the whole painting really with one size brush. The only thing we might do a little different is I'll use a needlepoint brush just to get some of the interesting branches and things over here, and over here too as well. And I also might make some trunks of trees here along this plaza area where these leaves are, where these treetops are. And maybe I'll do that first. I'm going to get in the tree trunks. So I'll mix up some, just some burnt umber, cerulean blue, sap green. We'll start here. And you'll see here I'm just doing some quick indications of some branches, letting the brush do the work. And you can always have some tissue or some paper towel with you, and you can blot up things as you go. If you find you've added too much paint or too much water, it's not a big deal. You can just always tap up a little bit of paint. That's not a big deal. And that's plenty to give us the impression that we have some really good and again, I took artist liberty to make some tree trunks here and tree shapes. I hope that's okay. Maybe it's not exactly 100% the way it is in real life, but it's always good if you can to leave the option open of adding some things in to make things easier for the painting to look better. And we'll add some shadowing for the trees. We'll cover that up with some figures over here. And that works good. You know, you do a couple, just a few trunks of trees here. And it ties in really nice with the green leaves we put up here. And a couple branches. Okay, that's really about it. All right, let's take one more break. We'll take one more break and then we'll finish up with our figures and we'll be all set. We'll have everything completed. So far, it's looking really good. We accomplished what we said we wanted to, which was get our darks in first. So our large areas of darks, the trees here, the beautiful cafe, Jimmy's Cafe here, and then the darks over here. And then now we have all the lights left, and then we just started putting in some lighter tonal values, some lighter washes, just to get things looking overall pleasing. And now when we add in our figures, everything will look all perfectly put together for a finished painting. Okay, we're going to take a break and we'll be right back. Okay, we're back from a break and we're just going to clean up our palette a little bit here. Get some of that paint off that we mixed up before. There's a lot of grays and mixtures in there we were doing with all different colors. You can mix to your heart's content when you're mixing paints, obviously, but eventually the palette does get pretty, muddy, with a lot of all the different colors mixing all the time. So you can only mix so much, and then you have to really clean up and have the fresh colors. To get fresh colors, you have to keep the palette, somewhat clean. So we just do that. And we're ready for doing our figures. Let's start in with the figures now. And pretty simple. We're going to start out with the distant figures. Thing is, in the distance, things are more mellow, cooler in color. So we're not going to make really super vibrant colors, if you can imagine. We're going to gray down our colors for these figures here in the distance. And then as we come closer in the picture, then we become more, our paint is going to be more vibrant looking. So we can use straight out of the tube paint, this nice soft moist paint we have here. We can use that, straight paint, maybe straight color, maybe like a beautiful red shirt or an orange shirt or a pink shirt. Any color shirt or jacket, anything you want to make, you can make it almost pure color with like no mixtures. But if you're in the distance of your picture, like back here, you'd want to definitely gray the mixtures down a little bit. So if you were going to make like pretty much the best bet is to just keep things very mellow back here, very light indications of the figures and the clothes and the things that make up these figures in the distance here. So let's keep that in mind as we're gonna go here. So we're gonna have some. We'll do some red, some cadmium red, and yellow ochre for our flesh tones. And for our distant figures, we can make some blue and purple, and then maybe add some burnt umber mixture in there just to gray it down a little bit. You can kind of see how once you add that little bit of burnt umber to the cerulean blue, you get that nice mellow grayish look. Same thing if we add a little bit to the purple. It gets a little more grayed down and interesting looking, but not so vibrant. So let's try that. Let's get some figures here. And as you can see, this kind of gives us a decent assortment of color, maybe a little gold. But more in the blue. Blue is a little better in purple, like keeping things cooler. I sort of try to connect the shapes. And we can go in with some darker burnt umber, French ultramarine blue. That's a little bit of our darker mix, maybe for the legs. A little bit of the shadowing. Let's make the shadow small. And just some indications of flesh tones here. We're going to do the... and again, we could take some purple and gray down that red a little. And as we do our figures, figures are fun. They kind of just appear, like if you just get the basic, carrot look to it, shoulders are broader up top, and then the shape gets thinner and skinnier as it goes down where the legs are. Once you have that basic idea, you're really going to have a fun time with figures. It's really not too difficult. Then as I'm coming closer into the so here my flesh tones will be more red, more vibrant. So a little bit of shadowing. And the colors are getting more vibrant right now because we're getting closer to, let's say, closer to the camera or closer to our eyesight. The more closer the figures are, again, we were saying before, the more vibrant the colors. So we can add some more vibrant color to the figures. And sometimes I'll just add a few details to the background. And I can gray down some things too here. So I made some trees back here. over the tops of those figures just to and I'm going to reference now my photograph that I have on my laptop. All right, so over here, and I'll do more of the same. I'll just add French ultramarine blue, purple, burnt umber, burnt sienna, make a darker mix. Now that I'm going to start to do the figures over here. And those are, I'm going to do some interesting colors maybe. So I will try to get some interesting colors over here maybe. Some interesting orange, some red. Maybe some cobalt blue. And I connect those together, and we put in some, maybe some hair here. And the main thing with figures, you want to make sure you keep, you keep the, I like to keep the head small, like small, because when you're looking at figures from a distance, the main large chunk of a figure from the distance is the body. The shoulders and the coats or the jackets, or if they're wearing, shirts or whatever, suits, the main large part of that is going to be the upper body. So the shoulders and that. The head is just small, so we just put a little bit of hair or like that. That's good. I think that looks fine now. We'll put a little bit of shadowing there, just for... Then we're going to work on this figure here up front, close to us. So I'll put a blue shirt, cerulean blue. I leave the top of the shirt lighter. That's where the light is striking from above. The sunlight is coming from above. So darker at the bottom of the shirt, lighter at the top. Maybe some and we'll do some hair. And a little bit of flesh tones. Again, that's going to be cadmium red. Cadmium red and yellow ochre. And this person here is carrying some shopping bags, so we can make some French ultramarine blue and burnt umber, a nice dark like that. That looks pretty good. Let's just add a little more like that. Perfect. Then we have another person here. Make this person, they'll have a red shirt on. That looks exciting. And lighter at the top. Maybe some blue jeans. And flesh tone. So we're just going along at a nice pace here. People are shopping and you work your I think it's good to work the we can work our figures, a little bit at a time. And then we had a couple figures in the front. They're looking more, they're well dressed. They have some suits on. So we'll use French ultramarine and burnt umber for a nice dark like that. And the female, there's a, let's see here. And a blue shirt. I made some, I put in cobalt blue with a little bit of mix of the purple and French ultramarine and burnt umber for that color. And we have, again, we can use burnt sienna, yellow ochre. For our figures here. Now the best thing, if you get in trouble with your figures a little bit, or you start to try to mix colors and mix washes on there, it's best to let them dry. So let's do that. Let's take another break. We went pretty good here. We did a lot of figures, and I think they look pretty good overall. They get brighter and more intense in color as they're closer to us, which is what we wanted to make sure we did, so that the other figures in the background here are more subtle looking. So we have that done. The only thing is if we keep trying to work details into these figures while they're still wet, we're going to have problems. So that's always a good thing is once you are working on a figure, let it dry and completely dry, and then come back and then add in a few more, maybe some features to the hair, or maybe a tie or something on the shirt, something like that. So if you do want to add in some details to your figures, make sure you let them dry 100% first, then come back. So let's do that. Let's take a break for 10-15 minutes. We'll let our figures here in the foreground dry, We'll come back. We'll add just a little detail if we feel we need it. If not, we'll let that go, and then we'll call it a painting. So we'll be right back to finish our figures here in the foreground. Okay, we're back from a break, and I'm just going to wash up my palette here a little bit, get some of that color off here, some of the mixtures, so we have a fresh palette to start with here while we're just finishing up our painting. And this is the finishing point, and not every painting is a home run, and we all have to just let's be thankful that we can create good paintings, and sometimes they're great. Sometimes we feel totally ecstatic that we did a fantastic painting. Sometimes we create a painting and we know that we could have did better, and those are the great paintings that we can just look at and say, all right, now I know on the next painting I'm going to do something that's going to look even better because I learned from the painting that I just did where something didn't come out right. So it's just learning and continuing to grow and see what works and what doesn't work. And I always keep my paintings that I've done, in the past. I keep them in folders and in boxes, and I once in a while go back and look at them, and I can look through them and, remember when I was learning how to do something a little better in a painting. So it's just a learning process, and I hope everyone's having fun at this and enjoying it. And we're here, and we're doing this beautiful painting again in Australia, in Brisbane, Jimmy's Cafe restaurant. Famous place in Brisbane, one of the most sought-after places for great food, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And a lot of times at the end of the painting, we can overdo it, so let's not overdo this. There could be things we could have... I know I could do things better on this painting, but I'm pretty happy with it. Let's touch up a few things I know I definitely want to do. One is I want to make this area here under the cafe a little darker so that it brings more of a focal point to this section here. So we have a lot of stuff going on in the painting, and it's a very busy painting. But let's get some really, really darks here. So we'll use some French ultramarine blue, purple, burnt umber, burnt sienna. Let's mix up a real rich dark. And I just want to, it is very dark in the picture, in the photograph online that I'm using. So I want to do that. I want to make sure I get a very close, for the tonal values here, I want to make sure I get. So now if I do this and add this really rich dark in there, that's really going to, there's some plants and things, so I can sort of do that look like that, that jagged look for the plants and bushes and stuff over the top there. And then I can soften the dark down in to the bottom portion so that and I did notice too that and I think that really does work. It really helps the focal point over here on this cafe, Jimmy's Cafe here and restaurant. It helps to make this the focal point a little more, stands out a little more. That dark really makes it look much better. Okay, that really helps. Okay, so that's the one of the final things I'll do. One more thing I wanted to do is maybe on these figures, just a little bit of maybe a little bit of shadowing here. And maybe here I can do some it almost looks better abstract maybe, without too much detail. So maybe some sunglasses on there. Much better. Some sunglasses. And the rest of the figures look fine. This looks really good. The only question I had in my mind is we could probably add a shadow from these trees down on the ground here on the but I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I'm just going to let that be as it is. It might look a little better, but that's something where doing too much can definitely be a problem, because when you get to this point, there's so much going on in this painting. If we keep going and going and adding more, it's going to maybe make things a little more too overworked. So let's keep it as it is. And then maybe we'll just do some lines on the promenade here. So this is some really, I'll follow the lines I already put on with the shadowing. Remember, we put that little light wash of blue. So I'm gonna continue to use those lines. You know, I'm gonna go in that same direction like this, and that'll just add a little more interesting and then a couple going this way. So we're just sort of making a little more interesting effect on the ground, on the sidewalks here in this promenade here. Okay, I think that's definitely finished. Again, I don't want to overwork it and do too much. So what I'll do is we'll peel the tape off here. We'll call this a finished painting. We had lots of fun doing this. Give it a try. Give it 2-3 tries. Maybe try it in different color schemes. Maybe you can go with a real colorful color scheme like this here, or you can try with more of a less colors. Maybe make it a more chromatic kind of look to it. But this looks pretty good. Looks much better as we peel off the tape. We'll get a good background here. And we'll zoom in. Okay, that's the finished painting. Give it a whirl, have some fun with it, do some things different maybe that you might think you like to change with this painting. That's always fun too, to try to change things around. If you see someone else do a painting, maybe try the same painting and then maybe, you know, do a few things differently that you might think look better, or something that you might like more. Could be anything really. More figures, less figures, different colors with the trees, different time of year with the trees, maybe autumn or fall time, or maybe springtime, less leaves. It depends on you. You're the artist. Have a fun time with this. Enjoy. And we'll see you on the next video. Hope you like this, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.